At the very beginning, I would say you look beginnings and endings. At the very beginning, there was on top of that very mountain an immortal stone which measured 36 feet and 5 inches in height and 24 feet in circumference. The height of 36 feet and 5 inches corresponded to the 365 cyclical degrees, and the circumference of 24 feet corresponded to the 24 solar terms of the calendar. On the stone were also 9 perforations and 8 holes, which corresponded to the palaces of the 9 constellations and 8 trigrams. Huh? I was told there would be no math. That's a lot of numbers going on there. And I don't know what any of them mean. The height of 36 feet and 5 inches corresponded to the 365 cyclical degrees and blah, 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 blah. We're telling us that these numbers mean something. The text is telling me at the very beginning that some of this is going to be confusing. Some of this isn't going to make sense. Some of this is going to have a lot of stuff on the surface, a lot of details going on that we need to look through and try and find, okay, what does that mean? Don't take superficial responses. So, at the beginning, this text, this book, is telling us how to read it. Don't worry about the surface stuff. Worry more that there is meaning behind it. So, okay, we've got that. Little warning shot that we cannot read this absently. We need to be aware, like, okay, all of this stuff means something. So let's start going through some of the stuff. Next paragraph. That monkey in the mountain was able to walk, run, and leap about. He fed on grass and shrubs, drank from the brooks and streams, gathered mountain flowers, and searched out fruits from trees. He made his companions the tiger and the lizard, the wolf and the leopard. He befriended the civet and the deer, and he called the gibbon and the baboon his kin. A lot of animals called out there, specifically. He slept with the tiger, the lizard, the wolf, and the leopard, befriended the civet and the deer, and he called the gibbon and the baboon his kin. That's an awful lot. Why not just say, he had a lot of other animal friends? That's much more efficient. This book would come in way under 1,000 pages if you just cut out some of the repetition, right? Fruits, trees, mountains, flowers, gibbons, baboons, wolves, leopards. What do all these have in common? Nature. The repetition of all the stuff on the surface, all of the details on the surface, is meant to prompt us to lean in a little and see that, well, okay, it's nature. And there is a certain repetitiveness to that. And nature is kind of repetitive. All the different animals, all the different, flowers and plant forms and geographical things. All that gets mentioned again and again and again. So I was like, okay, well, we're supposed to look at that. And it is repeated. The monkey in this is among nature. Okay, that makes sense. It's much more normal, let's say, than everything we just read about him being born out of a stone and that sort of weird thing going on. So the text gives you that strangeness, then brings you back to something a little bit more familiar. Okay, the monkey in nature. And clearly here, there is a kind of egalitarian quality going on here. He is friends with all of these other animals. Everybody's getting along. There's no urgency. There's no competition. There's no hostility. It is a kind of heaven almost, or even, dare I say, an Eden, to bring it closer to Western tradition. Eden is an interesting idea there. In the beginning, everybody got along. The first book of Genesis, God creates the earth by separating stuff. He distinguishes the earth from the sky. He distinguishes the water from the land. He distinguishes one animal from another. And then you get down to, the monkeys said to each other, quote, "We don't know where this water comes from. Since we have nothing to do today, let us follow the stream up to its source to have some fun." They want to know something. Something strikes their curiosity. They want knowledge. And that knowledge is causing them to want to leave this Edenic surrounding. Hint, hint. I can't think of any story that parallels this, where people or characters of any form live in a kind of bland paradise, completely at one with nature, and then one day get curious about something and want to know, and leads them to break out of that paradise. They enter this little cavern. All the monkeys clap their hands and acclaim, "Marvelous water, marvelous water. So this waterfall is distantly connected with the stream at the base of the mountain and flows directly out, even to the great ocean." Okay. Water is never symbolic of anything. They said also, if any of us had the ability to penetrate the curtain and find out where the water comes from without hurting himself, we would honor him as king. They gave the call 3 times. When suddenly the stone monkey leaped out from the crowd, he answered the challenge with a loud voice, "I'll go in." What a monkey. Now, as weird as the story might be, monkeys are adorable, so you gotta follow along with that. But the monkeys are surface. Surface stuff is always hinting at what might be going on beneath. So we need to ask a few questions about that. We need to ponder. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the adventures of a character, I believe his name is Harold Potter. At the beginning, he's just an ordinary kid, right? Or he seems to be. And his life kind of sucks. He's got his little life in his crappy little town, and he's going through it. And then someone comes to him, says, you're special. You can be more. There's this thing that we need as a group, and you are the only one who can go get it. And it will force you to leave your comfortable surroundings, even if they're not so comfortable. You know them, you're familiar with them, and you will have to leave and go somewhere you have never seen before, to charge out into the unknown. To gain this thing that the rest of us want, you bring it back to us, and we will call you a hero. Or, in this case, a king. And that's what's happening in that one little sequence with the monkeys. Most of the monkeys are very ordinary and chaotic. We are told when they get into the little cavern and they come across stuff, they go a little crazy. Jumping across the bridge, they were all soon snatching dishes, clutching bowls, or fighting for stoves and beds, shoving and pushing things hither and thither. Benefiting their stubbornly prankish nature, the monkeys could not keep still for a moment and stopped only when they were utterly exhausted. They're breaking stuff and stealing stuff and just running amok. And so the monkey interrupts. He solemnly took a seat above and spoke to them. Gentlemen! I love the archness of that term when talking to monkeys. Gentlemen, if a man lacks trustworthiness, it is difficult to know what he can accomplish. And then the little footnote tells us that he is there quoting Confucius. Which as a little side note, is curious because, quoting Confucius, now, okay, there have been a couple of references so far to Taoism and Buddhism, but now Confucianism is getting tossed in there too. And that seems like it might be significant. We'll get to that. But he says, you yourselves promised just now that whoever could get in here and leave without hurting himself would be honored as king. Now that I have come in and gone out and come in, I have found for all of you this heavenly grotto in which you may reside securely and enjoy the privilege of raising a family. Why don't you honor me as your king? I mean, that's the contract that they essentially struck. If I go over there and find out where all the water's coming from, if I go charging into the unknown that all of you guys are kind of afraid to, then I get to be king. That is the agreement they struck, and now he is enforcing the terms of that agreement. And it seems like a good idea because he is quelling all the chaos, right? He is literally coming in as the other monkeys are just monkeying around. And he is saying, no, no, no. We have to behave. It seems logical. It seems, dare I use the word, legitimate. A legitimate authority. Because he is disciplined enough, self-possessed enough, mature enough to not go crazy. So, he was obviously meant to rule. And some creatures have that and should rule. And some creatures are just, lower order monkeys, and they should just go be monkeys. And all right, you do what you got to do, but, when you get out of control, I'm going to come down, I'm going to clamp down a little bit. I'm going to be the ruler. This couldn't mean anything, could it? The other thing to bear in mind in that little passage about the monkeys, they weren't just going crazy. After milling around for some time, they too bounded inside, jumping across the bridge. They were all soon snatching dishes, clutching bowls, fighting for stoves and beds, grabbing stuff. Greed is one word. Covetousness is another, from another tradition. But what I would go at with this is attachment. They want these material goods. They're not necessarily breaking them. They're grabbing them. They're clutching them. They're holding them. That stuff is mine now. I need it. I want it. That dish is mine. I need it. I want it. And here, a little context is helpful. In primarily Taoism, but it certainly pops up in Buddhism, and to a lesser degree, Confucianism. Attachment is kind of a bad thing. Attachment to material, physical things is a bad thing. Attachment to the material, physical world is a bad thing. The ideal of the monk's life, if you think about it, and this is across traditions and religions, is to not care about the things of this world. To live with less, which gets you focusing on the eternal. I don't need a lot of stuff because my thoughts are elsewhere. This world is all just, it's okay, but I'm not really that caught up in it. I'm somewhere else. Let's say I am perhaps using my reason to project myself somewhere else, to focus on an ideal instead of the material, instead of the real. And so the monkeys demonstrate through their attachment to these physical items that they are meant to be ruled because they're just a lower order of life. So again, a simple little scene that is really kind of cute. Monkey's going crazy. Right after the Monkey King specifically says, "I should be king," we are told, when the monkeys heard this, they all folded their hands on their breasts and obediently prostrated themselves. Hey, he made a good case, and we're all just a bunch of dumb, unevolved, lower order monkeys. We shouldn't be in charge. We shouldn't have any power at all. That guy over there, he's got it together. He was born for that. That is legitimate authority. And the story is right out of the gate, this very long novel in the very beginning of it, making this case.